So this is one of the links is in MediaWiki. We have an OOUI kind of like explanation. You can go over it later. We also have the documentation. If you go to doc.wikimedia.org, we have OOUI. There's a JavaScript and PHP, and there are demos. The demos are super useful. Whenever you need anything in your widget, you can come play around with the widgets that are here, and then figure out which works best for you. Recently, this little tiny stuff was added. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to read the whole code for now. I'm gonna put it up, but so we added the ability of kind of like look at the code. So if you want this widget and you want to know how to create it, you have like a snippet of code here, and you can go and also check it out in the API documentation, which is very, very well documented. I think there's a lot of examples. You can go in and check out the option widget, what it's allowing you to do, what other all the options that are listed. The thing is that this is already there after you started working. So the initial barrier of kind of like, okay, how do I get into things, is what we're going to go over now. So we're going to start with the tutorial. The tutorial code is available on GitHub. You can just clone it or get it. If you have corrections, feel free. I already did that, so we just started out with basically just a really basic HTML just structure with all the assets that we need. So jQuery, OJS, which is the base of OOUI. Oh, bigger. Is that better? My computer is fighting me. Alright, all the assets. Again, this is on GitHub. You can follow along. Git clone this, follow along. jQuery, OJS, which is the basis of OOUI, and then OOUI. I'm using Apex here, which is the to Volker's, I'm sure, chagrin. Using Apex here. We have Apex and MediaWiki. We recommend MediaWiki. Also, when you work inside MediaWiki, you don't need to choose that. It chooses it for you. In Vector, it uses MediaWiki, and I think in Wikimedia UI, sorry, Wikimedia UI skin. And which one does it use Apex?
Monobook.
Yeah, so Monobook uses Apex. So if you're doing projects inside MediaWiki, you don't need to actually, select all these things. But since this is outside, then I selected them for you. And we have a file called init.js where we put all our JavaScript in. So this is kind of like, the finished JavaScript for our app. So I'm going to first show you what the app does, and then we're going to go over the code. So we're going to do a to-do app. Okay, so we want to do, really simple to-do app. Oh, bigger. So I don't need my... Well, okay, that's a little too big. Okay. So a to-do app, so really basic to-do, right? I want to be able to write something in, foo, and it's added. Okay, and I want to now, add bar, buzz, and this is in, and then I have all three of them, and I can select one, or select the other, or select... Okay, so this is kind of like a very, very minimal to-do app. And here's basically the code. So what do I need? Well, I need a text box, because I know I want to enter stuff in, and then I need something to give me a list of stuff that I can select from. Okay, well, if I go to the demos, which I just had here, and I went away from, so in the demos, I can go over all of them, and since I already know what I want, I'm gonna input widget. Come on. So you go over all of them, and you see buttons, and then, oh, this is what I want. I want basically a text input. Okay, so a text input widget. I can take a look. It's fairly straightforward. All right, so that's what I'm going to do. I have a text input widget, and then I want something to allow me to add items in and then select them. We're going to use the basic select widget for that. Okay. The one thing that I did add in is kind of like I wanted to have its own classes so that I can also do, add to it. So I just add to do input, to do list as classes. But the rest of the stuff is basically out of the box. So I do both of those. And on the bottom here, I attach them to the HTML. Now, OOUI widgets have their logic in the widget itself, and then the element that you're working with is inside $element. So when you attach them, like the DOM element itself is $element. All right, so when I append them, when I work with the DOM element, I need to, it's not just the general widget, it's the widget, I don't know if you can see it, .element. Should I make it even bigger? Okay. Is everyone following? I'm kind of like not getting any. Is there a confused vibe in the room or shocked? What's going on? Good?
Sounds good.
You're good? Okay. That's where, you know. This tutorial, by the way, is also written in the form of a blog post with kind of like step-by-step, add this first, add second. So after we're done here, you can also do it yourselves. It's like, you know, step-by-step to kind of get the sense a little more. Anyways, okay, so I added both of those to my DOM. And then, of course, I need to add behavior. So OOUI works with events. It emits events. You can read what kind of events is emitted and listened to in the documentation to each one of those widgets. So the input widget has an enter event, which is built for you with all the various cases that could happen with whatever. That is emitted when you hit enter, as you would suspect. So I'm adding, on input, on enter, and I'm going to put whatever I need inside. So I started out with, if we skip this for a second, I'm going to go back to check for duplicates, but basically, list, I'm going to add an item, and I'm going to add an option widget. The select widget has option widgets in it. Okay, the option widget has some data, which incidentally is the same as the label. That is basically how it works. Now, I said, let's also check for duplicates, because we don't want to be able to add, we want the widget to warn us if we want to add a double. So if I write foo again, I want it to not, add it in, and I want it to warn me. All right, so before I add, let's check. So get item from data is another, method in the select widget, which gives me the item from the data. I know that this is the data because that's what I set up for all my items, right? If that item exists, then add an error class, very straightforward, and don't continue. Otherwise, whenever I click enter, first remove the error class and add it again, right? We can take a look at the CSS, but we really shouldn't. It's basically really straightforward, crappy, make it red. It's not. You really don't have to. Also, please don't follow my CSS on that example. Anyways, very, very straightforward kind of thinking. Now, I can say, well, obviously it's get item from data. But you can see what it is if you go to the documentation. So I'm working with a select widget. I'm going to go to search for, so somewhere here, a select widget. There we go. And I'm going to check. I have an example here, and then I'm going to check what my options are, and I'm going to find get item. So I have get input, get get item from label, get item. Are you kidding me? There's no get items from data.
Probably.
Bartosz, did we fix this?
It might be mixed in from group.
But then it should show it.
Yeah, it should.
Oh my god. Well, this is new. Alright, this is following up the every time you demo something goes wrong. You can also use the label, apparently, get item from label. I actually didn't know that. What happened to get item from data? Bartosz, you know? Do you have any idea?
I think we renamed it.
We renamed it, didn't we?
Oh,
that's right.
Because it can return.
Okay, thank you, Bartosz. That's right, we renamed it. Okay, so my tutorial uses a previous version of OOUI, and it was recently renamed to find item from data. So sorry about that.
It's not select item by data?
It's not so select is a different thing.
Yeah.
So select will take the action of selecting it too. You can do that. What I wanted to see is whether there are duplicates. So I don't want to create the action, like follow up with the action of actually selecting it first. I just want to see if it exists. So I'm using the find thing. We just renamed it. We can bike shed on whether or not it should be find or get, whatever. But apparently find one.
It's find because it might not be there, whereas a getter would imply that there's the result to be had.
Fair enough. So yeah, my version of OUI apparently is a little older than that. Apologies. I will try and fix the demo so that you can actually follow along with the current documentation. But this is the point, right? So you go, it's find element by its data, you know that this is what you want. There is also select by data. You can also use that, but that uses an action of selection already, so it does that for you. Alright, so we checked for duplicates, we saw that, if it exists, we throw an error. Now, one of the things that I did not add to my demo, and is a little annoying, is that if I type, blah, and I hit enter, it enters it, but my blah is still in the input. That's super annoying, because if I hit it again, it won't let me add it, because it's checked for duplicates. So, just to show you, very, very cleanly, well, if I want to enter, added the item. So I already checked if it duplicates, I added the item, I can just go in here and say input, set value to nothing. And now if I load, and I go foo, bar, buzz. Okay, so fairly straightforward. So this one was the beginner's straightforward, silly little app. But obviously that's not really useful to do list. It's just it doesn't even do anything when you select it. It's kind of like add it in, So in part 2 of the tutorial, I go over slightly more advanced stuff. So you can do a whole lot more without even extending those widgets. Just by, yes.
Just one small point. If you were going to you did the class to make it red. That is also built in if you use set validation.
Oh, that's right.
So if you pass in a function, you can say to work out whether the input is valid, and then you'll get built-in styles to make it go red when it's not valid.
Well, do you want to try it?
Sure.
Is there also built-in error message?
So
I think it's a validation in config.
Yeah, validation, I think.
Let's check it out. Well,
the text input widget.
oh, it's in the text box, right? Okay, not text.
Right.
Alright, the config, it's validation. What is it exactly?
Valid.
Oops, validate. Alright.
So yeah, it takes a regular expression, a function, or a string. So you can pass a function.
Yeah, but then how do I check?
So I think the first argument would be the current value, so like val. Am I doing this right, Walter?
Well, we can check here.
Function.
Yeah, but I think you'll need to...
So then just return true or false, depending on whether it's in it. So then you can just return select item.find.
But is my context this in that function?
Well, as long as your select item exists in the context above, you should be okay. Yeah, so list will exist at this point, yeah.
Oh, list and then this.
So return list.get item from data. Or rather, return not list. Yeah. Val.
Ah.
And then do return not. Yeah.
Alright. And then let's...
Comment that out.
Okay, ready? This is a demo that better work.
It might not stop you from submitting it, but it should at least go red if you type in something that's already there. So you might still need code to stop you from submitting it.
Oh, I think it would. It was okay. Let's try. Foo, bar, foo. Oops.
Yeah. So
Okay,
let me
so-
type it again, but at least it's highlighting it now.
Okay. All right. Semi good enough, I guess.
Is there also a way to display a message. So what's wrong right now?
Not
Right.
built in.
So inside the submit, you could check the valid. You can do other stuff inside the validation.
Can show a little icon which says already a list.
Yeah, yeah. You
So,
could
but
do
you'll
that.
need to add it in. It's not built in. But what you could do though is
The built-in
on
will just
enter.
file it.
I think there's is valid, isn't it?
Yeah. Although I think that might be async. So.
Oh, that's right.
so
Isn't it this way?
I think it's async, right?
I don't remember. Possibly.
Yeah, like get validity. Yeah,
It is a promise. Right. So we can do list, no, input,
Mm-hmm.
get validity,
Mm-hmm.
then,
So this is async in case your validation requires a server call or something.
so if we're good,
Then you can do your action from below.
we're going to do this. And if we're bad, I'm going to be super lazy and I'm going to do,
OOUI.alert.
what?
OOUI.alert.
Oh, is there? Is it just a call or,
I think so.
let's see.
If you have the window library,
I mean, if we're already like playing around in front of everybody,
it might throw an exception.
why not? Alright, foo, bar. Dude!
Boom.
Yeah, nice.
Alright,
And then it doesn't insert it as well.
it does not insert, we stopped it from inserting. Okay, so because we were a little quiet, just to repeat, validate, you can put either a function or regex too.
Yeah.
The function could be async, so your validation could be something, is it in the API or la 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 or something, which is why get validity is async. Get validity is a promise. Okay, so you can use that, say, okay, get validity, if my input is valid, as you can see, do something, otherwise do something else, and currently we have OOUI alert, which I completely forgot, which looks like this. Yay! Alright, which is a lot better than JavaScript alert. So, thank you. Alright, so this was kind of like, as you can see, it's true that, we kind of like knew what to look for, but even if we went like, a little like step before that and then just read the instructions, it's all here, right? Like get validity, get, the current value. You see that it's a promise. Like you could get to it, right, on your own, I hope. Okay, the documentation is there. The documentation is fairly good, and I would hope that, if you want to say, oh, I need validation, I need, something, I need to limit the widget to do something, it's all available here, and it's relatively simple to kind of like, do things that would otherwise take you a long time to do on your own. There was a question? I heard something, no? Alright. So that's, there's a whole bunch of things that you can do just with OOUI out of the box, as you just saw, right? And this is just scratching the surface. I could also say, okay, what happens if you select an item? So I could do like list on select. What do I do? Do I maybe, add another, whatever, notice or save it somewhere, whatever it is. So this is basically widgets out of the box. I didn't extend any widget right now. It's text input widget out of the box. It's select widget out of the box. But another thing that we can do is kind of like, improve or get our own things going by extending those widgets. And this is what the second part of the tutorial is about, which is this part here. All right. So, oh, no, that's not it. This is it. And that's it. Okay, so this is the second part. So just to show you, right now what we're going to have is foo. It's not going to get rid of it because I didn't add the tiny fix to make it blank, which we can do again. Bar, baz, right? So the first thing you can see that's different, I have a little delete button here. and I can click it to delete stuff. The second thing is that if I choose, it actually shows me a little bit of information, like when I made those, which, because I made those really quickly, it's kind of the same, but now,
Wait 30 seconds.
duh!
Not yet.
Wait, 30. Okay, well, we'll add them, in 30 seconds. But you can see that kind of like, it's adding a little bit more functionality. This mainly, like the delete button and having kind of like, extra stuff there. So in order to do that, we need to extend the widgets. And then let's go over a little bit how that looks like. So here's my, let me close this thing. So this is the same init file. So as you can see, I'm missing the validation that I can just copy back from the other file, but I have an input, which is a text input widget. I didn't need to extend that one. And then my list now is no longer a select widget, it's a custom to-do list widget, which I will show you what I did with. And then I have the info in some, like I wanted to display like, information with the date, which is just a label widget. It does almost the same thing, so still it checks the same way for kind of like, do I have duplicates or not, adds the item in, so the on enter is exactly the same. But we have now another event to listen on, which is on choose events. So a list, one of the things that it gives you is a couple of built-in events. One of them, obviously, is a choose event. Now there's a select and a choose event. Select is something that happens usually through code. So if you in the code selected something, that event will be emitted. But if the user actively chose something, then a choose event is emitted. And this is a very intentional separation. There's a different intent between those two. We want to make sure that you can separate. I think in choose there's both select and choose. Mm-hmm. So you could, if you wanted to do something, no matter if the user or the code, just selected something, then you listen to select, and then no matter what, it will do something. But if you want to do something only when the user intentionally picked, then it's the choose event, right? So there's a bunch of things that the widgets do for you, which is one of the strengths of OOUI. So in this case, on choose, I'm saying, okay, take the info and kind of like, add that data to it. As you can see, I was very diligent in it's basically just get the, whatever label with pretty creation time, which I created to just display the date in a nice little way. Actually, it's really hacky, and please don't do it that way. It's very, where is it? Here. So I'll just show you the pretty creation time. Seriously hacky. Don't do it that way. Use moment or something. This is
Try it on production.
and it's not even translatable. Don't do that. This is a demo. I feel obligated to kind of please don't do that. But anyways, it's good for the demo. So let's start to get into a little bit how things look like. So I wanted to extend. I extended two widgets. The item widget, so each item that is inside the select widget. So if you remember from the initial, so part one, when we added to the list, here, when we added to the list, we added an option widget to the list, right? But in part two, when we add to the list, we added to-do item widget, which is our custom one. The to-do item widget is inheriting, so it's extending the option widget. So we're taking, the option widget, we're extending it to add our own thing. OOUI, it's actually OOJS, but it doesn't matter. OOUI allows you to inherit class and to mix in, which is a super powerful ability to create your own widgets. So inheriting, this is the syntax. You do inherit class, the name of your class, right, and what you're extending. This will do all the connection stuff for you, all that kind of stuff. And then you just start, make sure, of course, you call the parent and everything. And then you just do your own thing. So in this case, I want to preserve the creation time, and I want to have a delete button. So I'm creating a new button widget, delete, and I want to make sure that when you click the button, something happens. So I'm connecting the button with the event to this method, which is here. Okay, and this dot element. Remember, I said whatever is the DOM, it's in the $element. So I want to add some custom class to it so that I can, work with it. And I'm appending the button to the end. So append button. And then on delete, I just emit delete. I want the list to handle deletions. Okay, so I want this item to emit delete, and then when I show you the list, we'll see how we deal with it. Get creation time, because I want to be able to display it. And then get pretty creation time is my horrible hack of, displaying the date, kind of, yeah, anyways.
Well, there's no canned date thing?
I'm sorry?
There's no canned date thing?
There is, but I wanted to kind of like, have month names in it, and it didn't work with the date thing, and I was kind of trying to be smart about it. Yeah, it's not, yeah, it's for the sake of kind of like, yeah, look, it shows you stuff. Don't do it. Completely hacky. It's not translatable, which is horrible. But this is just to kind of like, make it something that you can kind of look at and see how it works. So this is kind of the item. So the item, I didn't really do much with it. I just wanted to really added a button, and I'm retaining some information. Yes?
Can I ask a question? Why are you using .connect instead of .on? I've never seen this .connect before.
Thank you. Thanks, Ed. Geez, what is the difference between... Well, it's the context, right?
Yeah, so the first argument is the context, and then you can also pass an object of... So you could pass click and then that, and you can just pass a string with the name of the method. It's the same. You can use .on click, but this is just a cleaner syntax if you're connecting up a bunch of events to a bunch of methods in your class.
So I'm going to show that, I think, here. No. Okay, so just to repeat louder, this .on would accept a method afterwards. So you could do something like, this .on, and then the name of the event, comma, and then some like, bind some of your events. But this format here is a lot cleaner, and it gives you a lot more powerful features when you kind of need to connect different elements when you build your widget. So you pass, the first argument is the context, so this, I'm connecting, and then the event name. I'm pointing at my screen and I forget that you can't see my finger. This is the event name, and then you're giving it the name of the function. One of the nice things here is that if I go back to my to-do item, so I did basically here, on click, you go to the named function, which is this one, and then because here all I do is emit, I can actually do a array here. Delete. Like that, and skip this method completely, because it will just automatically emit a delete event. So this is kind of like, a lot more powerful than the regular kind of like, on with a method. And it's a lot more useful when you have a whole bunch of events, because sometimes you have like, on click and on, I don't know, I think on list items is probably, on select, on choose, on da-da-da-da-da, you have like a whole bunch. It's a lot cleaner to just write them as an
It's
object.
also good for unbinding as well, because you can use disconnect and pass in the method name. Whereas if you're unbinding, we're using .on and .off, you would need to keep a pointer to the function.
Oh, that's right. Did everybody hear that?
No? It's if you want to unbind the function, there's a disconnect method, and you just copy the same thing, and you replace connect with disconnect. You can do that on and off as well, if you're using on, but you need to keep a pointer to the exact function you passed into on if you wanted to unbind it using off.
So it can't just be the string of the name of the function.
What's this shorter syntax, the emit, delete?
So that's if you have more than one. So the first one is a method to call, and because you're an event emitter, then emit is a method, and then variadic arguments. So that's essentially doing what's happening on line 23 and shortcutting that whole method.
So, I mean, that's just to sort of rename the event.
Yeah, it's basically instead of
looking for a click.
It's not really renaming it, because the click is inside the widget, and I want the entire widget now to emit that. But basically, yes, I'm kind of like...
You couldn't access it from outside.
It's, well...
One method contain one big widget contain another widget.
Mm-hmm.
You can
pick one of them, you can see the data, And if I click delete in any one of them, whether it's selected or not, the event comes in and it removes the item. Alright. Which time do I have? 10 minutes, perfect. First of all, any questions so far? Yes?
When writing new widgets, is there a recommended way to test them, unit tests, something like this? Best practices.
So it's really hard to write unit tests for a UI element. We do have some unit tests on some of our OUI widgets when they're more dealing with more logic. So there are things where you want to make sure that, like, you're adding stuff, removing stuff, there's a lot of logic in it. Then you do a unit test, making sure that the widget does what you're requesting it to do. Unit testing of kind of like, how things are placed and stuff is just very difficult. We do have in our unit tests a bunch of things that Timo added with kind of like comparing the DOM structure. It's usually not really needed unless you're doing some logic stuff in your widget.
On the visual level, it also doesn't provide you with a lot. It's a visual diffing brings you more than unit testing. But yeah.
The main problem is that because there's a separation between like the state and the view in our UI, like the text that we could change tomorrow the text input widget to like render the view differently, right? At the moment it renders like a div with an input inside it, but we could change that to be like 2 divs, or like we could get rid of the input and have like a completely custom cursor and everything. But the API to the text input widget would stay the same. So if you write any tests that look at the HTML or the DOM, then they're liable to like fail upstream changes.
How about data sources? Let's say we've got a select widget that should read from an API or whatever on the list. Are those data sources usually created within a widget, or are they passed?
Right. So this would be my next. So it depends. First of all, we do have a widget called a lookup element. Do we have a widget with it? I know that it's a mixin. Do we have a demo? Do we have one as a demo?
Yes, we have one with an integer. There's one. It's in. Try lookup.
Yeah. So we have something called lookup element, which is a mixin. So for example, you can start, and it will think and then bring you back. So here it brings you back basically numbers, but it can also bring you back data from an API. Right. So this is already built in for you, and there's a lot of like kind of like preset stuff that you can do with an API thing. And of course, if you need extra, then you can extend that one, which will be easier for you.
But the target of this call is encoded within the widget.
Yes.
There'd be an abstract method like get.
So I derive from some class an override method called get.
Yeah, I don't remember what it is, but we can check it out.
Return a promise or something like this.
Lookup element.
Yeah, you can just return API.
And method get request. What is it? Yeah.
Yeah, you can overwrite it at different levels, but yeah, any of those.
Okay. So it exists, and there's also actually the lookup element. There's also examples in MediaWiki. We have title, right? Title widget that basically does that with the API with titles, and I think we have user also search. I believe.
Categories.
So inside MediaWiki, there's MW widgets, and you can look at what was done there, and it's basically kind of like an implementation of that which you can reuse. Another thing I kind of wanted to touch on was that. So the point of OUI is kind of like to get one of the points is kind of like to get the separation of data from being in the DOM, which can be manipulated, can be to like being in a data object that uses the DOM, right? This is why the OUI widget has a dollar element, which is the DOM representation, but all the data stuff is done inside the object, right? But you can take that a step further. So if you go to, for example, if I show you what we recently worked on, which is recent changes, all of this, where's my recent changes? So this product, which we'll load in a second. So this one, I don't know how many of you just playing around with this, but this is special recent changes. All of the filters thing here, it's loading filters. bubbles, you can highlight stuff. All of this is OUI. Now it is relatively highly customized, but not as highly customized as you think. A lot of those widgets are already existing in the OUI repository that you can use. Some of it is kind of like customized and stuff. But the biggest thing about this is that this is a complicated enough product that doing the entire logic inside the widgets was just made no sense. It started being really, 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 really complicated. So what we did in this product, we worked with MVC. We have a controller. We have a separate object that is the data object, that we have a view model, and we have separate kind of like smaller data objects that kind of like manipulate their things. And the widgets listen to the events from the data model. This is something that I highly recommend you look into. Echo works the same way, so notifications work the same way. When you see, if you have something relatively very quick that you need to implement, OUI can be out of the box without anything, you just put it up. If you see that you have a product that requires a little bit more manipulation within itself, that suddenly a lot of different elements need to work together with the same kind of data, then developing a data layer, then it's kind of like an object that runs your data, emits event, and the widget accepts it. So when you extend your widget, you add like a parameter, here's my data element, right, my data object, and the widget listens to update event or whatever from the data and updates itself. That is a really useful kind of like method to work with OUI, okay? Because OUI is event driven, and it's really, very kind of like conducive to that kind of work. I would just recommend, just out of experience, because these things can happen, just be careful if you do that, to try to be clean in what you call back. So the widget shouldn't manipulate the data directly, the controller should do that. So you should try and get like that circle of the widget calls the controller to manipulate stuff, the controller manipulates whatever data, because sometimes it needs to manipulate a whole bunch of stuff. The data emits event, which the widget listens to and updates itself. Okay, it needs to be kind of like a circle. If you kind of adhere to that, you can get really clean applications, very logical, really robust with OUI. Okay, a lot cleaner than just using all the logic inside the widgets, which can be really kind of messy and end up being messy. All right, so this was kind of like my advice. I think yes. Last tiny point: upstreaming into OUI. We want more widgets if those are useful. So when you work on your things, usually what we do is, you work on your product, you create, I'll come back to, let's say, recent changes, also my battery's low. This kind of product, right? You work on your own product. You decide to either create your own widget, right? Because you can also extend a general just widget, not just a specific one, right? I send a widget, and then I add stuff here, and I add stuff here, and I do something that is meaningful. And you create your widget, and you think, you know what, this could really be useful for other projects. We can upstream it up to OUI if it's generalized. Okay, so this is usually what we do. We do it for a specific product, and then when we try to generalize it into OUI, we try to get a kind of more generic, kind of configurable version. If you have those, we totally welcome, more collaboration on the library, more suggestions. OUI tag, I think, is the one that we're using for OUI. There's also a board there.
Right.
Feel free to help us out. Definitely report bugs, report missing features. If you have ideas for widgets, I'll just dump it on Bartosz and everything.
You can also upstream to MediaWiki core as well, to MediaWiki widgets.
That's right, yes. And if it's MediaWiki specific, like title. So title lookup is very specific to MediaWiki, but it's also like, probably a lot of other places want to use it, right? Something to look for a title was upstream to MediaWiki widgets. So that's not OUI, because that's, not generic completely, that's specific for MediaWiki. So it was upstream to MW widgets, blah. And then a lot of other, gadgets or whatever in MediaWiki you can use. All right. Any questions? There's a lot of kind of like shocked faces. Was that too heavy? It's good? Right.
I would have one question.
Yes?
The version of this is something like 0.027 or something?
It's 0.27, yeah.
Yes.
Is there any intention to get this to a stable version, like 1.0?
So may I answer
Yes.
this as release as often a release a responsible person. The reason that we don't have version 1, it is stable in itself. We don't have currently. We don't
You
have.
just didn't find a version that just recently changed.
Oh no. Okay, this tutorial uses the previous version. It's not that it was broken, right? When we release new versions, we absolutely write breaking changes and stuff like that, like any library. I just wrote this like a year ago and just didn't update it. So the same thing would have happened to jQuery.
Yeah. So you won't get a long-term an LTS version. That is something that we're not providing because we are still expanding that library and find some things that we want to have fixed on a general level. But then we also care about the implications. So we care normally about the products within to our knowledge. If we really break things, which has not happened to break in production for a long time because we care so thoroughly. From a version 1 perspective, there has been other things, more like social things, not necessarily code things that keep us from version 1. So from a release perspective, the minor patch versions might be confusing, but it is seen as a stable product that is used for millions and millions of users on a daily basis.
It is used in production. This, for example, is in production by default to...
Maybe as a short answer to this. You're right, it is a stable product and it is used by millions of users, but I would argue this is because you are in step with the development of MediaWiki and OOUI is in step with each other. As an extension developer, of course, I'm maybe not that much in synchronization with this development. So if I want, for example, to support several versions of MediaWiki, I rely on there being some kind of stable version that does not change all the time.
I don't have a simple answer to this because we also try to, as I said, we try to overcome technical debt. A lot of the last releases from last quarter were technical debt that keeps not only us but also extension developers from moving useful forward. And therefore we can't provide like I don't know what do you expect when you say multiple versions of MediaWiki, how far you want to go back, but.
I don't know. Right now, when I develop an extension, I go back to 127.
To one?
To 127, which is still the current long-term.
Yeah.
Of course, I see your problem, your motivation. So maybe just as a heads up and to keep it in mind.
Yeah, no, totally.
Right.
Thanks for the question. Yeah.
Yeah, we had a couple of discussions about how to create kind of like a tagged version.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in Node, in NPM, it is version. So you could just download a previous version and keep it in your extension, but it's not ideal at all.
Yes, because then I would have to somehow, in my extension, isolate the version of UUIS and then, you know. Okay, thanks.
You're making me think now on how to help you out here. Yeah.
A different question about the theme. You already said that Monobook uses Apex theme and Vector uses
Wikimedia
UI. Is there a recommended way to create a custom theme, for example, for custom skin, and to load this skin instead of the default? I would rely on Bartosz to give an answer to this because we provided the custom theme functionality.
Right. So I don't think that it is almost possible. We like have the mechanism just inside of the libraries that we could add a new theme. There is usually a way, a more easy way to use a different theme after you create one from the wiki. That is something that we're still working on it, but it hasn't really progressed recently. But it is almost possible. I think you would just have to, if that is something you are interested in, you could probably help me find somebody to get that pushed through.
Also, I have to add on a different level. From all we've did over the last 1.5 years, we tried to really bake in, like Moriel said in the beginning, internationalization, RTL support, best UX best practices. So often when I hear theme, then people say they just want just let me try to understand you, and you gonna tell me if I'm right or wrong. They try to go closer to the branding of their own website, and OOUI theme might be too much. So what you could actually do is go and replace one of the files that we use in Wikimedia UI that has all the colors baked in, which is WMI baseless. It's a less variables file, and if you replace it, if you just copy Wikimedia UI over, you're going very close.
And actually, all that I want to do, we've got the four main Wikimedia Foundation colors, which might not apply to custom scheme. So maybe I would want to have another shade of blue, for example. So is there a recommended way or a tutorial about how to change those colors, maybe font sizes, something like this, and have this in a custom skin? Is there a resource or? So
there's no dedicated resource, because there's different approaches that we're taking. How far you want to go with your theme, how much you want to provide, the ability to really come up with a custom theme is the one that Bartosz was talking about. But from a branding perspective, the one that I was talking about is probably bringing you in shorter time to an already acceptable place, and that is something that we can write a short article on both ways on the MediaWiki documentation.
I'd really appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, we should. I'm trying to think like now about that challenge. I'm gonna think about it. We should talk. All right. Thank you very much. I'm available. If you have any questions, I'm really hoping to see projects in this hackathon done with OOUI. Please keep in touch with the OOUI kind of team. Like, we really want this used. We want to see what the challenges you're encountering are. We want to fix them, and we really do care. As you can see, I'm gonna go back to you. Thanks.